as compared to 1 million, approximately 1 million in 2021. Contributions are pretty consistent, really 12,358,000 as compared to 12,159,000 in the prior year. Benefit payments were up a little bit, 22,359,000 as compared to 20,665,000. You know, this is also pretty consistent. In a frozen pension plan, we should really see these continue to grow year after year as people who become vested and retire take their benefits. Administrative expenses, there were a little change there, 109,000 as compared to 115,000 in the previous year. And then again, total participants, total active participants is 1,376 in 2022 as compared to 1,400, which again, that's really consistent. We should see active continue to drop as this is a frozen plan.
Excuse me, what's the funding percentage of the defined benefit plan?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
What's the total funded percentage of the defined benefit plan?
We would have to pull up the report.
I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe from a market perspective is the mid-high 70s, and from an actuarial perspective is mid-80s, 85 or 86.
Okay.
I can send you the official numbers from the report, but that's.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we could actually consider adding to the highlights next year as well. Moving into the defined contribution plan. That position for 2022 is approximately 20 million as compared to 23 million in 2021. Again, investment losses in 2022 of 4 million as compared to investment income of 2.8 million in 21. Investment manager fees, again, pretty consistent, little change there. 19,000 as compared to 23,000 in 21. Contributions, this includes small amounts of rollovers by employees during the year. That's 3,098,000 as compared to 3,059,000 in the prior year. So a little bit of an increase in the benefit payments in this plan, 1.5 million as compared to 842,000 the prior year. This really is just a handful of participants taking their vested balances who had, substantial benefits in this plan during 2022. Little change in administrative expenses, 59,000 in 2022 as compared to 64,000 in 2021. And we had a small increase of employees participating in this plan, 624 as compared to 601 in 21. Next slide. Moving into the deferred compensation plan, the net position is approximately 87 million as compared to 108 million in the prior year. Total investment losses in this plan were approximately 19 million as compared to investment income of 14 million in the prior year. Investment manager fees, 112,000. Those were down from 147,000 in the prior year. Contributions in 2022, this also included small amounts of rollovers from employees. 5.1 million as compared to 5.3 in the prior year. Benefit payments, a pretty big increase here. Again, same situation as the defined contribution plan. When we're looking at testing, we're also kind of analyzing. There's a handful of participants with larger balances who received their distributions during 2022. So that's at 7.7 million as compared to 4.5 million in the prior year. Administrative expenses were down 109,000 in the current year as compared to 128 in the prior year. And then just a small change in total participants. There's 800 participating in 2022 as compared to 807 in 2021. So at the conclusion of these audits, we issue our required communications, which again is really outlining CLA's responsibility for these audits compared to what management's responsibility is under these audits. So CLA is responsible to express an opinion on the fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with GAAP. We're responsible to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that the statements are free of material misstatement. We evaluate the internal control, perform walkthroughs related to the financial reporting. We're utilizing a risk-based approach, as discussed earlier, and we communicate any significant matters to the appropriate parties, which would be you today. We perform the audit according to the plan, scope, and timing that we previously communicated with management. The financial statements as issued today should only really be used in their entirety. Our approval is required to use our audit reports and any client prepared documents. And we have no responsibility to perform procedures beyond those related to the financial statements as a whole. Next slide, please. Management is responsible for the accounting policies of the organization, and those are all included in Note 1 to the financial statements. There were no significant changes to the accounting policies used during the 2022 audits as compared to 2021 audits. All the accounting policies that are adopted have been deemed appropriate, and there were no unusual transactions that occurred during the course of our audit. Some significant estimates used in the preparation of the financial statements, it's more specific to the pension plan, are the actuarial assumptions used to determine the net pension liability and valuation of investments. So that's really specific to the alternative investments held by that pension plan that don't have a readily determinable fair value. Estimates are made by management, and those are based on their experience and knowledge of those audit areas. There were no management biases indicated. All estimates were deemed reasonable, and any estimated uncertainty would be disclosed in the financial statement. Next slide, please. All the financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. There were no significant transactions that we came across that lacked authoritative guidance. The financial statements include required supplemental information and other supplementary information. There's no expression of opinion or any assurance given on that information included in the financial statements. The methods for preparing that information included in the statements have not changed from the prior year. The supplemental information from our respect is appropriate in relation to the audit as a whole. As discussed at the beginning, the financial statements have been given to management, and they have provided their approval through the management representation letters that were dated July 26, 2023. Next slide, please. Just some other items included in this required communication there were no difficulties encountered in performing our audits. There were no issues discussed prior to retaining us as independent auditors. There were no disagreements with management regarding accounting, reporting, or other matters. We used no other independent auditors for consultations related to anything during the course of our audits. There were no other findings or issues discussed or communicated with management during the audit, and no findings for that matter discussed during the course of our audit. There were no corrected and uncorrected adjustments either to the financial statements. At the conclusion of the audit, we would also issue any internal control communication. You did not receive any internal control communication, so that's a great thing. But again, to reiterate, during the course of our audit, it's our responsibility to express an opinion on the financial statements, not the effectiveness of internal controls. We do design our audits to consider internal controls, but those considerations are not always designed to identify any material misstatements or weaknesses. So those obviously could exist, just not be identified. Then we have some material weakness and significant deficiency language that you might see in internal control communication. But again, there was nothing issued to you guys, so I'm just going to skip over that. So again, next slide, please. So again, no findings were identified, no management letters were issued, clean audit on all three of them. For this year, we had no issues with any of the MSD staff. Always super wonderful to work with, super organized. So overall, really great year. And that really concludes the presentation, unless someone has any questions. There's some contact information for myself if you have any questions that you think of outside of the presentation today.
Any questions for Stacy? Okay, at this time, Stacy, there are no questions. Thanks so much for your time this morning and for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, and then with that, we will turn it over to Todd and Bill.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So we're going to grab this presentation here. We just have to go over the network vulnerability and attack and penetration testing engagement. Again, I have Bill Gogo here with me from Armanino. He's going to help answer any questions. He oversees the IT engagements for us. So move to slide 2 there. So to get off, again, our goal here is to communicate kind of what time it is in the publishable report. Not so much on how the clock works. When you get too much detail, we issue a technical draft that is very, very detailed. We give that to IT, and we don't want to publish that information. So we have 2 separate reports, the drafts that we give them so they can really understand what we saw. So if we move on to slide 3, so we're basically doing this engagement annually, as I've mentioned to you guys. This is the 5th attack and penetration audit in the past 6 years. We've done similar ones in 18, 20, 21, and 22. We'll do another one in the spring of 2024. This is definitely time well spent. I think it helps them give a second set of eyes on the IT area. We've really seen over the past few years, we've seen significant improvement over the overall system security. There's a whole list of items that we've seen improvement in. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but they have reduced attack surface area, which means the number of externally facing systems has been reduced. They've been very consistent with the patching and updates, which is very important because new exploits are popping up all the time, and you have to patch to prevent those. They really improved the firewall structure. They've improved the segmentation and so forth. They decommissioned a lot of these older systems, which were more vulnerable inherently. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Let's see if you have any questions on that. Slide 4. So as to the scope, there were 2 main parts to this, internal and external. We included all externally facing systems. Now, externally, there were 10 system targets, and internally, there are 4 system targets. As I mentioned, the attack surface area has been reduced. In prior years, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, there were actually 16 targets when we did the external side. Now there's only 10. So it's just logic would tell you if the area is small, it's easier to defend that way. So we did the testing during portions of May 2023. If you move to slide 5, the overall objectives of the engagement were to identify potential system vulnerabilities related to unauthorized access to the system, to determine if an attacker could access any critical systems or sensitive data, district financial information, just information around the employees, their social security numbers, their bank account number, that's all in the system. So we want to make sure that's protected. Information around the suppliers, the vendors, the customers. Probably most importantly is our systems around our plant pump station system. We will make sure that nobody can get near that. So move on to slide 6. Again, more objectives. There's two main areas. There's the external and the internal. Externally, we wanted to assess the accuracy of the network perimeter, security and protecting the systems from an external attacker. Now, on the internal side, we're assuming the attackers are already inside the system. So what we want to see there is we want the network to kind of box in the attacker and not let them move around, kind of just keep it in one spot. And move to slide 7. As far as our approach and methodology, we use simulated attacks that an attacker may use in the real world. We use the same type of escalation and exploit techniques. There's new exploits all the time, so we try to incorporate those in our testing every year. That proves that they're patching, they're updating the systems as they move along, and that's what we've been seeing. So it's been good news there. We attempted to access sensitive data in critical systems from an unauthenticated perspective, so we had no logon credentials, even from the inside. So we only use application and network techniques in the testing, so there was no social engineering, there's no phishing, no kind of trickery, it was all system type stuff. We did focus on depth of access over the breadth of coverage. Basically, we identified where we thought were the vulnerable areas, and that's where we attacked. We just didn't attack wildly across the board. We looked for where we thought the weak spots were. Testers were provided with information regarding the architecture of the scope targets. There were no changes to the security controls, and the attackers made no effort to conceal any of their activities. Any questions there? Slide 8. This just shows the standards and the certifications that are involved with this type of engagement. You can see there's penetration testing, execution standards. All of their attackers are certified ethical hackers. Now slide 9. Just so you kind of see it in your mind's eye a little bit. Now externally, just think of the network as a house and a property. We're trying to break into the property from the outside and get into the house and find the valuables. Internally, we're already in the house. We're in a room, we're locked in a room with no keys, basically. We're trying to break out of that room and move around the house and find the valuables. We have no logon credentials. So move slide 10. As far as the results, externally, we had no success in accessing the critical systems of data. Again, think of the network as a property. So we did break into the property. We kind of broke into, I guess, what I would call a guest house on the property. We rummaged around in that guest house, looked around for anything valuable. We could not get from the guest house into the main part of the network. Now, in this case, that guest house is a system called tie to quote. So we left empty-handed, basically. Now, if you go to slide 11, internally, we had no success in accessing network valuables either. We did find some vulnerabilities, but every time we tried to exploit it, there was another door that slammed on our face, basically. Or we opened a safe and there's another safe within the safe. We couldn't get anywhere. District has strong network countermeasures in place to stop us, so that was a good result. So if you move on to slide 12, so overall, again, externally, we had a satisfactory opinion. We did identify the one opportunity for improvement around the title quote system. Again, that's that guest house that I showed you in my little picture there. Internally, we again had another satisfactory opinion. It was a clean opinion. We did identify a couple of vulnerable areas, again, that we were not able to exploit. Those need to be tightened up a little bit, but again, the network countermeasures prevented us from exploiting those at all. Any questions? All right, if we move on to slide 13, we talk about from the external side, again, the tidal quote system is the one item we have to talk about. So just a little bit about what is that? It's a proprietary system designed by the district. So they actually wrote the code for this. Purpose is to calculate and provide a dollar figure for amounts owed for sewer service and other related charges for premises and property. So it assists in the closing process for sales of properties within our district. And what it really does is help the district collect from these properties when they're being sold, the amounts that are owed to the district. It's very useful in the collection process, this system is. So users of the system access with logged on credentials at the district's Project Clear website, mainly title companies and financial institutions. Basically, they have to register for this system. Let's move on to slide 14. You can see there's a screenshot of what the system looks like. So if you actually went out to our Project Clear, you could click under customer, you could click on this. This is what it looked like. You'd have to register to be able to use it. Move on to slide 15. So in testing, we found some weaknesses in the system security around this tidal quote system. There are weaknesses in the overall registration process. So without being too specific, it allowed us to access the system under existing entities log on. We were able to see a whole list of the entities that actually use the system. We were able to manipulate the quote requests and so forth. Now, it's nothing too critical or truly sensitive here, but let me go on the next page here, slide 16. Again, we were not able to leverage this access and move from that guest house over into the main house and get to the critical data. But we do see two risks here. The attacker could really get into the system and really slow it down. They could wreak havoc in this tidal quote system and really make it a mess. Also, if the attacker has more time and luck, they could identify a path from tidal quote into the rest of the system. You know, they could move from the guest house into the main house. So if they had enough time. So we obviously want to make sure that doesn't happen. So slide 17. So our recommendation is to take steps to strengthen the overall security of the system. So I want you guys know they are already rewriting this program. They were in the process of doing that anyway. So we identified these weaknesses. They're going to incorporate these. Incorporate these recommendations into the new code. They're developing this new version of this program that should be rolled out in a month or two. So, any questions? All right, slide 18. This is the internal side. Now, this has to do with what they call Oracle WebLogic systems. So we identified 4 systems that were running on versions of the software that are out of date and basically end of life. I guess one thing I wanted to explain, what is an Oracle WebLogic system? Basic terms, it's a platform that facilitates communication and exchange information between the client user and the application in the database system. So as you look at that graphic below, you see the WebLogic system is in the middle. So basically the user is on the left. It's facilitates. So and then on the right is Oracle database and the Oracle platform. So it kind of facilitates that interaction between the user and the actual system. So we move on to slide 19. So these systems potentially can provide access to data that is critical or sensitive. They don't actually have the data, but you can use them to get to the data, basically. So we were not successful in exploiting this system. Again, the strong network countermeasures stopped us. But again, if an attacker has more time and luck, they may be able to identify a path to circumvent the network countermeasures. So that is the other thing I have to mention. So these systems are remnants of the previous Oracle system. As you guys probably remember, we did an upgrade in spring. We moved from Oracle EBS over to Oracle Fusion. So IT has purposely kept these running to help ensure a smooth transition from the old system to the new system. There's been a few bumps on the way, as you guys probably know, with upgrades. That's generally the way things work. So they are in the process of decommissioning and replacing these out-of-date systems. And also I wanted to mention, much of our adversarial activity did generate actionable alerts to the IT team. So sometimes they would say, we see something here. Is that you guys? And we would say, yes, that's us. So they were aware of what we're doing. So just so you guys know that. So a recommendation is, that the identified systems be decommissioned and replaced as soon as possible, as soon as possible from an operation standpoint. It is our understanding they should be able to get this accomplished by the fall of 2023. So last item on slide 21. So we identified, this has to do with what they call segmentation. We identified 3 management systems that need improved segmentation. So access to these 3 systems does not appear to be sufficiently limited or restricted with the network. This exposure with the network leaves the system more vulnerable. So think of get back to my little house analogy. So these systems are in the house. And what we like to see is these systems in their own individual room with the door locked, and only certain personnel or certain systems have the keys to the door to get to the system. Right now, these systems are kind of like out in the living room, so more personnel and systems have access than should. So our recommendation is to, add additional segmentation protocols around these particular systems. Now, overall, we have seen improvements in the overall segmentation process. Just want to let you guys know that. So, any questions on that? So slide 22, as far as addressing these, again, the title quote thing is being rewritten. That should be done by the end of August. The Oracle WebLogic, they should have that accomplished by probably the end of October. And then the segmentation thing, I don't think will take too long. They expect to have that done by August 31st. So, you guys have any questions on any of this? All right, I appreciate it.
All right, Bill, anything you wanted to say or add? Or,
Nothing to add.
okay. Thank you. All right, I believe then, Todd, that concludes the business items we had for the audit meeting. Trustee Watson.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Todd. Next meeting tentative date, September the 5th, 2023. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Trustee Nicholas, we'll switch things out and be ready to go.
Still picking up all his stuff.
Hey, Todd.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the 245th meeting of the Program Management Committee, Tuesday, August 1st, 2023. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, the record will reflect that Trustee Fair is absent this morning. All other trustees are present, including Trustee Wabi, who is online.
Thank you. Approval of committee minutes, July 5th, 2023.
So move.
Second.
There are no comments by the chair. Engineering Department agenda items.
Good morning, trustees. Quite a few items here this morning, so if you have a question, please interrupt me. First 2 items are CSO volume reduction green infrastructure. The first one is for KETC parking improvements. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter an agreement with St. Louis Regional Public Media to provide financial assistance through the Green Infrastructure Grant for the construction of green infrastructure. Purpose of this project is to reduce combined sewer overflows to the Mississippi River per the long-term control plan and the consent decree. This project will reduce runoff volume with the installation of 1 bioretention basin. The total cost of the project is estimated at $696,414. And St. Louis Regional Public Media is requesting approximately $55,000 reimbursement for the cost of green infrastructure. In your package, you'll find a map. This project is located in the Midtown area near Lindell and Grand, at the rear of their property, near North Spring, draining their parking lot. They're installing one bioretention that'll capture those flows before they get to the combined sewer system on Spring. Next item is a CSO volume reduction for Crescent Plumbing. This ordinance authorizes the district to enter an agreement with Quadrangle Management Company to provide financial assistance through the Green Infrastructure Grant for construction of green infrastructure. The purpose of this project is to reduce combined sewer overflows to the river to Pear per the long-term control plan. This project will reduce runoff with the installation of 2 bioretention basins. The total cost of the project is estimated at $276,686, and Quadrangle Management Company is requesting approximately $272,686 reimbursement for the cost of green infrastructure. Again, in your packet shows the location of this project. It's in our upper river to Pear Basin, near Olive and Skinker. You'll see 2 large bioretention basins being constructed to drain the parking lots and the buildings of the Crescent Plumbing supply. Any questions? Next item is the Mississippi Floodwall ORS Pump Station Ladder Replacement Project. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a construction contract. The work to be done consists of removal and replacement of 23 ladders at 18 pump stations located along the Mississippi River floodwall. The purpose of this project is to improve safety, provide reliable means for accessing critical infrastructure along the floodwall pump stations. The district received 3 bids for this project. The low bid was Corrigan Company. The bid was below our design estimate, and our appropriation of $625,000 is below the original budget. We did have reduced scope. We eliminated some site security improvements from the original project. As far as MWBE, this particular project, because of the extent of materials being ordered for the project and the limited amount of subcontracting opportunities, there was a MWB waiver on the project, so there'll be no participation. All right, the next item is the Upper Baden Sanitary Relief Project. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a construction contract. The work to be done consists of construction of approximately 4,200 lineal feet, sanitary sewers 8 to 27 inch in diameter, and a 12 foot by 7 foot cast in place concrete box culvert and appurtenances. The purpose of this project is to reduce building backups and relieve overcharged sanitary sewer. This project will also provide for the elimination of 1 constructed overflow and a known overflow located on the system. The district received 4 bids for this project. The low bid was from Fred M. Luth and Sons. The bid was above our design estimate, and our appropriation of $5,650,000, which includes $375,000 of utility relocation, is above the original budget for the project. There was a slight increase in the overall footage that was originally approved in the budget. Fred M. Luth is committed to just over 17% MBE African American for this project, which meets the 17% goal. All right, the next item is the Valley View Pump Station Replacement Project. This appropriates funds and authorizes staff into a construction contract. The work to be done consists of construction of a new submersible pump station and valve vault, incoming sewers, incoming manhole condition monitoring structure, and construction of approximately 550 feet of 4-inch force main and epoxy coating of existing manholes and detention pipe. The purpose of this project is to replace the existing antiquated tin can pump station, which is at the end of its useful life, and its associated force main. The district received 3 bids for this project. The low bid was from Kelp Contracting Incorporated. The bid was below our design estimate, and our appropriation of $780,000 is below the original planned appropriation for the project. Kelp has committed to just under 18% African American participation for the project, which exceeds the 17% goal for the project. The next item is the WW2, WW3 Warson Woods Sanitary Relief Project. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter into a construction contract. The work to be done consists of construction of approximately 140 lineal feet of natural channel stabilization and 10,560 lineal feet of sewers, 8 to 48 inch in diameter. The purpose of this project is to reduce building backups and relieve overcharged sanitary sewers. This project will provide for the elimination of 3 constructed sanitary sewer overflows once the construction is completed. The district did receive 5 bids on this project. The low bid was from Fred M. Luth and Sons. The bid was above the design estimate, and our 2-year appropriation of $8 million in fiscal year 24 and $6.5 million in fiscal year 25 includes $450,000 in utility relocation, and it's just below the 2-year planned budget for the project. Fred M. Luth is committed to 17.29% African American MBE, which exceeds the 17% goal for the project. Next item is a Sutherland Lansdowne combined sewer replacement. This appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter a construction contract. The work to be done consists of construction of approximately 776 lineal feet of combined sewers, varying from 10 to 15 inch in diameter. The purpose of this project is to remove and replace an existing deteriorated combined sewer system. The district received 4 bids for this project. The low bid was from Bates Utility Company. The bid was just above the design estimate, and our appropriation of $1,500,000 is above the original planned budget for the project. Bates Utility is committed to 17.03% MBE African American for the project. The Wildwood Manhole Replacement Project. This action appropriates funds and authorizes staff to enter into a construction contract. The work to be done consists of the removal and replacement of 23 manholes and appurtenances. The purpose of this project is to replace older, damaged, and deteriorated manhole structures in the city of Wildwood and Chesterfield, Missouri. The district received 4 bids on this project. The low bid was from Gardner Contracting. The bid was above our designer's estimate, and our appropriation of $1.4 million is above the original budget. A couple things attributed to that being above our estimate budget. There were additional 6 manholes that were added to the project above the original estimate, and this is a newer type material that we're using for these manholes. We did not have a lot of bid information or that available to us when we did our estimate. Gardner is committed to just over 17% MBE, 17% African American for the project. All right, the next item is Coldwater Creek wastewater treatment plant repairs and improvements. This action appropriates additional funds. This is a planned supplemental funding for this project on existing project that's being constructed by Plocker Construction. The work on the project consists of removal and replacement of all aeration control piping, including fittings, meters, and valves in the aeration control building. This project will also modify the existing core screen gripper system on the project. The additional core screen gripper will improve system reliability of the grit removal system. This appropriation, a supplemental appropriation of $5 million, will bring the total appropriation for the construction project to $10 million and fully fund the construction for the project. Next item is the Baden and Mill Creek ORS pump rehabilitation project. This also appropriates additional funds, planned funds to an ongoing pump replacement project. This is planned appropriation in fiscal year 24 to Fairbanks Knee House Pump. The purpose of the work to be done in the contract consists of removal, rehabilitation, and replacement of 6 existing pumps in both the Baden and Mill Creek pump stations. The purpose of this project is to rebuild pumps nearing the end of their useful life. This supplemental appropriation of $464,192 is for the procurement services needed to rehabilitate the 6 pumping stations. This supplemental appropriation request will bring the total appropriation for the project to $5,325,192 for the project. The next 5 projects are renewals to existing engineering support services contracts. We use these in the planning and delivery of our capital improvement projects and our consent decree projects. The first one is the Streamflow Water Quality Sampling Project. This appropriates additional funds and authorized staff to amend the contract. This authorizes the district to amend a contract with Geosyntec Consultants and appropriates funds for the amendment. The purpose of the project is to perform water quality sampling to comply with post-construction monitoring as required by the consent decree. Samples will be collected from 6 sites on the Mississippi River on a biweekly basis. Samples will also be collected from 3 sites on the Missouri River once every 4 weeks to establish upstream background concentrations and water quality impacts in the St. Louis area. Water quality monitoring is required by the EPA and MDNR to demonstrate compliance with water quality standards as part of the district's long-term control plan and the consent decree. The original contract with this vendor allowed for 1 year with an option to renew for 2 additional years based on performance. This will be the 2nd year for the 3-year contract. The appropriation for $258,460 for these services is slightly below the proposed budget presented in the CIRP. Are there any questions? Next item is flow metering and monitoring. This appropriates additional funds and authorized staff to amend a contract with ADS Environmental Services. The purpose of this contract is to provide the district staff with flow and level information in separate sanitary sewers, combined sewers, and storm sewers during dry and wet weather conditions at approximately 250 locations annually for durations ranging from 3 months to 12 months. This data is a diagnostic tool that will be used to meet the consent decree requirements, refine our hydraulic models, determine project effectiveness, support our I&I investigations. The data from these meters will also be used to support the district's ongoing programs such as CMOM, asset management, sewer prioritization, stormwater control programs, our SSO control plan, our CSO control plan, and our I&I reduction project. The appropriation of $2.5 million is equal to the proposed funding in the CIP and is needed to meet our consent decree requirements. Are there any questions? Next item is a critical infrastructure and asset investigation project. This appropriates funds and authorized staff to amend a contract with Trek Design Group. The purpose of this contract is to provide the district staff with detailed information regarding sewer systems by performing services such as project inspection, reconnaissance, field investigations and sewer systems and structures, inspection prioritization, and project setup. These services will form the basis for the district's led preventative maintenance and rehabilitation activities. These investigations all provide assistance to the operations department with their sewer cleaning and manhole inspection activities. After this amendment, an appropriation of $1.7 million, the total contract appropriation will be $3,400,000. This contract is renewable for up to 1 more additional year based on performance. Next item is a stormwater asset investigation project. This too appropriates additional funds and authorize staff to amend the contract with Trek Design Group. Purpose of this contract is to provide district staff with detailed information regarding our storm sewer systems by performing services such as project inspection, reconnaissance, field investigations, and storm sewers and structures, prioritization, field verification, mapping updates, asset ownership, and work order management. These investigations will also provide assistance to the operation department with their sewer cleaning and manhole inspection activities. This contract amendment for stormwater asset investigation is for $800,000, bringing the total maximum contract amount to $2.4 million. This will be the second and final renewal of this contract, so we'll re-RFP this for the next coming year. Next item is stream flow gauge and operation with the USGS. This appropriates additional funds and authorizes staff to enter into agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey. The work to be done is to continue to collect stream gauging information in 25 watersheds throughout the St. Louis area. USGS will continue the operation and maintenance of the existing network of 40 stream gauging stations in 25 watersheds within the district. The data will be used to provide reliable flood peak and stage estimates for the use in our hydrologic and hydraulic models or calculations at project locations within a drainage basin. The data and calculation methods were typically used for projects, water quality data evaluation and modeling, post-construction monitoring program for CSO long-term control plan, and phase 2 stormwater program, and numerous other planning and design support activities. The total cost for the stream flow program is $610,430. The district's contribution to that is $532,330, which leaves the U.S. contributing $78,100 for the matching services for this program. Any questions? All right. Moving on, we have a supplemental to an existing design contract, the Gravois Creek OMCI Stormwater Design Project. This appropriates planned additional funds and authorized staff to amend a design contract with Oates Associate for the design of projects included in the Gravois Creek OMCI Stormwater Design Project. This project consists of the design and preparation of construction documents for multiple stormwater infrastructure improvement projects. This total supplemental appropriation of $50,000 is for the MWB participation. The commitment was 30%. There are no additional MWBE for this particular $50,000 amendment, but they're meeting that 30% goal. All right, the final two items are annual funding appropriations for easement acquisition for our wastewater and stormwater projects. The first is for easement acquisition funding for a wastewater project. Again, appropriates funds to acquire necessary property rights to construct the combined and sanitary sewer projects that I bring to you on a monthly basis. This ordinance appropriates a total of $5,800,000 for staff to take further efforts to acquire the necessary property rights by the means of donation, purchase, contract, lease, and other exercise of power of eminent domain in order to construct the combined and sanitary sewer projects. With this funding, it is anticipated the district will acquire approximately 352 easements for our sanitary projects over this fiscal year. The next item and final item today is the easement acquisition for storm sewer project. This action appropriates funds to acquire necessary property rights to construct our stormwater project. The ordinance appropriates $280,000 for staff to take these further efforts to acquire property rights, again, by the means of donation, purchase, contract, lease, or other, or exercise the power of eminent domain in order to construct the storm sewer projects. The $280,000 equipped with some remaining funds from last year of about $300,000. We'll acquire a total of 48 easements for this upcoming fiscal years. Any question? If not, that concludes the engineering department agenda items.
Thank you, Rich. There's no other business. Next tentative meeting date, September 5th, 2023. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Trustee
All right, we'll call over the 293rd meeting of the Finance Committee. Roll call, please.
All right, we'll note that trustee Fair is not present this morning. All other trustees are present. Trustee Wabi is online.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting?
So moved. Second.
I have no comments. Next thing is the collection litigation services resolutions.
Good morning, trustees. In 2020, the district issued a bid for collection litigation attorneys. The bid was awarded to 3 law firms, the Gustav Law Firm, John Hymas Law Firm, and Kramer and Frank. The contract or the bids terms included a 1-year contract with an option for 4 renewal years. I'm here today to talk about a resolution that would exercise the 3rd of the 4th option year. These collection agencies typically collect approximately $25 million a year of delinquent accounts on behalf of the district. They are compensated at 16% of what they collect, which is approximately $1.3 million for each law firm. So they are an important tool that we use towards the end of our collection process. So unless there are questions, I would request that the committee approve or recommend that the resolutions get placed on the board agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to the next item is our quarterly adjustment review report. As required by our ordinance, I'm presenting adjustments over $5,000 that were approved by the Adjustment Review Committee of the district. Total adjustments, there were a total of 54 adjustments with a credit to accounts of approximately $402,000. If you look at the top section of the report, you'll see that the bulk of those adjustments appear in that section, so I'll cover those. There were a total of 53 adjustments in that section with the credit balance issued of about $390,000. Most of the adjustments centered around 3 items. There were reduction factor adjustments, 10 of those. which totaled $130,000. Those adjustments are part of a process in which our Department of Environmental Services will go out to companies and review the amount of water that's actually entering into our sewer system. And so we will issue credits to reduce billings if all of that water is not getting into the sewer system. So those are modified periodically, and you'll see corresponding adjustments that appear on this report. We also had 25 water agency adjustments, which totaled $141,000. Those are typically changes in metered usage that the water agencies report to us after the account has been billed. So they're basically correcting the usage that was billed. Or if you're in the city, it could be changes in attributes that city water uses to bill. They give us that information and we make corresponding adjustments to customer accounts. And then finally, there were 10 water off adjustments totaling approximately $81,000. As it sounds like those are customers whose water services have been deactivated, and the water agencies provide that information to us and we make the corresponding adjustments. At the bottom of the adjustment report, you will see these are actually billings to the Bridgeton landfill and Missouri American Water. There were 5 of those totaling approximately $700,000. Are there any questions regarding the adjustment review report? Okay, if not, those are the only items that I have on the agenda.
All right, and I've got one item, and it is the one that we look at every month, the operating portfolio report. Not a lot of changes again. This month, we have been spending money, mostly capital, about as fast as we've been bringing in money. So very slight changes to portfolio. Total par is up only about $3 million over the last month. I'm starting in the upper left. Yield to maturity for our portfolio, 2.64%. That's about 4 basis points higher than it was last month. So we're getting just a little bit of turnover because we're just not turning over that much of the portfolio. So we're just, again, slowly increasing. The benchmark, however, the entire portfolio turns over. Rates are higher than they used to be. So that's at 5%, which is about the same as it was last month. Not big changes in weighted average maturity, though that's a big difference between the portfolio and benchmark. We stay shorter than they do. Moving over to the top right, this just shows that we are in compliance with all of our policy limits. All of these percentages in our portfolio are within 1 or 2 points, excuse me, of where they were last month, so no big changes. Same with the fund summary, no big changes. And then for the maturity distribution, we have, this just shows the graphically, I guess, the difference between the maturities in our portfolio and the benchmark. So we're the blue bars. You can see that we have a significant amount of our maturities maturing within 1 year, whereas the benchmark is almost entirely over 1 year. So that's really the same as it has past many months. Any questions about the portfolio report? All right, then Trustee Evans, that concludes the business we had for the finance meeting.
All right, thank you. Next tentative meeting date is September 5th, 2023. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you.
Trustee Wilson, we'll get everything ready for the last meeting. Trustee Wilson, we're ready to go.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Stakeholder Relations Committee meeting. Can I get a roll call, please? Thank you. There are no comments from the chair. Can I get approval of the committee meeting minutes of July the 5th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, with no objection, those minutes are approved. Next two items, in fact, Ms. Jenny Kinstra, you're going to present to us several, an overview and a resolution.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, trustees. Glad to be here this morning. Yeah, it's two items. One is an overview of our information security program to give you a brief update. Even though the ransomware is not in the news as much as it was a few years ago, it's still a risk that we consider each day, and want to give you some information as far as what we're doing to mitigate that risk. I want to introduce to you Jason Stockman. He has been promoted to the Assistant Director of Technology, and the information security team now reports into him, and he manages the security controls.
Good morning, trustees. So wanted to give you a brief overview of what we've done this year to kind of enhance our security platform. I know you heard some of it through the audit with the pen testing, but we have some additional controls that we put in place, and just kind of wanted to highlight those for you. If you could go over the next slide. So a couple of things to kind of note in the news. As Jenny mentioned, there's not as much being said about what's going on with the ransomware in today's environment, but it is still very active. Between quarter two and quarter of 22 and quarter two of 23, we've seen an 18% increase in attacks on utilities, which obviously is very concerning for us as we want to make sure that we're protecting our systems, both on the business side as well as the operations side. The other thing to note is that the EPA is continuing to do more with planning and assistance on the cybersecurity platform, and they've stepped up and said that they are providing guidance as far as what to report, when to report, and even inserting themselves as a central point of contact for all governmental agencies should that choose to happen. So, for example, in a ransomware event, if something happens, especially if it's related to PII, personal information, sensitive information, you may need to notify the FBI. You may need to notify certain other governmental agencies. The EPA will act as that central point of contact for all of the respective agencies, so that you don't have to have multiple phone calls. You can have one meeting. So those are some of the things that they've provided guidelines on that we continue to look at and see how that might apply to us and our infrastructure. Moving on to the next slide, please. So next, we kind of wanted to go over our security rating and kind of highlight one of the tools that we use to kind of take a look at our outside infrastructure from an outside-in perspective. As mentioned earlier, again, in the audit, we do have our annual pen tests, but we use the next tool on the next slide here, BitSight. We use this as kind of a report card, so to speak, to let us know how we're doing as far as our external profile is concerned. This company reviews on a monthly basis many of the different potential exposures that could be seen in the district, things such as email, external web servers, open ports on firewalls, things of that nature. And you can see they do use that, and these ratings are supplied to banks and insurance companies. So it is similar to a credit score in that they want to make sure that our cyber profile is as good as it can be. If we move to the next slide. So this year, it actually has moved up 20 points. We were at 740 last year. Now we are at 760, which is in the advanced range. Our highest for the year was 770, and it does kind of fluctuate up and down based on what happens through the scans on a monthly basis. And we, like I mentioned earlier, we use this to make sure that we are addressing any potential external vulnerabilities before they become too prevalent. So, are there any questions on the security ratings? Okay.
One quick question, if you.
Sure.
And have we been targeted, or we're aware that we've been targeted, or has that, or any ransom, by any ransomware?
Not to date, knock on wood. We've been very diligent in making sure that we're trying to protect ourselves. So to date, we have not had any incidents.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
So I did have one additional thing that I would like to kind of go over some of the improvements that we've done. If you could go to the next slide. So one of the frameworks that we try to stand by is called the NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And they have a cybersecurity framework, which is basically a recommendation for how you can improve your security profile. And some of the things that I wanted to highlight is in the different categories of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover is, we've implemented some stronger ways of addressing our assets and identifying our assets throughout the district. We have increased our patching and vulnerability scanning. As mentioned, they scan externally on a regular basis, but we monthly scan every device within the district for vulnerabilities and then address those potential vulnerabilities before they become an issue. We also have implemented some centralized logging, but the biggest thing I want to identify is the segmentation of the OT network. What that means is that's the protection of our SCADA and DCS systems out at the plants and the pump stations. We implemented a new technology that completely isolates that from the business network, which is a big improvement on our end. The other things to mention is the training of our users. We've started an annual tabletop exercise for our information security team, where we give them real world scenarios to deal with and walk through how they would address it. And we do one live exercise where they actually have to use tools to identify the potential incident and report on it. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. Trustees, I'd like to present resolution number 3853 for addition to the board agenda. This resolution is related to the company that hosts our data center. We refer to it as Regis, that is the Regional Justice Information Service Commission. We had a contract with Regis. This is option year number 3. There is one more additional option year after this year. So today we're asking for authorization of the renewal of that agreement. It is for budget year fiscal year 24 in the amount of $395,000. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is mine, and it is a proposed ordinance 16201 that references our conflict of interest policy. The actual policy was shared with y'all late last week, and you have a copy in front of you now. So if there's any questions or comments on it, just let me know as we're going through this. But the Missouri Ethics Commission requires that a political subdivision that has an annual operating budget over $1 million have a conflict of interest policy. You can either follow their conflict of interest or you can have your own policy. The district has many years ago elected to have our own policy. So that requires us, the Missouri Ethics Commission requires us to then readopt that policy by ordinance every 2 years prior to September 15th. So that's what this action will do. It will readopt the existing conflict of interest policy. Staff has reviewed the policy. We have no major changes that need to be suggested. So if there aren't any questions, this will appear on the board agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, trustees. I'd like to bring your attention to ordinance number 16203. This ordinance is being presented to you today for introduction and adoption. It's for the executive search firm. As you guys are well aware, we're looking for a new executive director, and this firm is going to assist us in this process. And after some extensive research and working with you guys, we've come to the decision that HR Gov would be the best vendor to deliver those services. The cost for this will be around $30,000. And we want this to go into effect immediately. So this is being presented for you. Are there any questions about this particular ordinance? No? Okay.
Thank you. No questions on that.
All right, so then I'll move on to the next one. This is the introduction of proposed ordinance 16202 for third-party claims administration services. This particular service is going to be our broker for insurance for all of our liability insurances, and helps us also with the water backup. It'll be Thomas McGee, LLC. This contract is going to help for the administration of all those claim costs. So there are TPA. I'm helping us with another 5-year contract, with 1 year being optional, 4 years. 1 year being a permanent, and the 4-year optional years for the contract. This will start January 1st of 2024, and the estimated cost for this is $675,000. Are there any questions about the ordinance for our TPA for our insurance? Okay. And the last ordinance that I have is, resolution is 3862. It's for the reappointment of Civil Service Commissioner Michael Harvey. Michael Harvey will be reappointed to the Civil Service Commission on September 29th, 2023 for a second 3-year term. His term is currently expiring on September 29th. Well, his new term will expire September 29th, 2026. Are there any questions or concerns about this particular resolution for the commissioner? Okay, trustees, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else for the group? If not, that was the last item. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Okay. No objection? Thank you again for your attendance and attention. Have a good month. Good week.
Thank you.
Brother.
Thank you, everybody.